It is 1:37 p.m. The talk is about to begin. 8-Bit Guy, LGR, Action Retro, whoever that is. Adrian's Digital Basement. Oh my God. The YouTubers are here. They're all here. There's Macintosh Librarian. It's so cool. See.
This show is bananas. Transformed the room, and hopefully it's a little bit better. Thank you for your patience, and welcome to the 5th annual VCFMidwest YouTuber's panel. I'd like to see how quickly I can introduce everyone. We have a couple of new faces on the panel and a couple of familiar favorites. Immediately to my left is Jason Compton from This Week in Retro. I'm one of those weekends. That's right. Amy and Taylor, split by Adrian from Adrian.
Adrian!
From Macintosh Librarian.
Yeah.
Veronica from Veronica Explains.
Veronica!
Polymatt. David Murray. David Clint from LGR.
Action Retro. They're all here.
And I'm your host.
Yeah.
That's not the way it's supposed to work. They're supposed to get the applause. A couple of big changes actually happened in YouTube. I want to go over a little bit of some YouTube inside baseball initially, because I know that a lot of people who come to these talks are aspiring YouTube creators themselves, and any information and tips that we can get, we'll certainly try to pass on. In late 2024, YouTube made a substantial change to their recommendation engine that now tracks every user individually. They used to do it by groups or by blocks. But if you've ever tried to watch a video while not signed in and then you haven't not played the video because it didn't tell you to sign in, that's why. And it's kind of shuffled around how YouTube has been operating for the past 9 months. And I wanted to start off with a discussion for people who currently make their living on YouTube, or at least it's a substantial part of their income. Have you noticed these changes? Certainly one of the most recent changes was in mid-August, and Adrian, you spoke about this, and others, even large channels have noticed this as well, that due to YouTube shuffling around their algorithm without telling us what they're doing, in mid-August, roughly across the board for all channels, all the views went down by half. And you can imagine that would probably cause some panic. I guess what I'm asking is, have you noticed any other major changes this year? Has it, I guess this would probably be for Adrian, for Clint, for David, and for Veronica, and anyone else, and Sean. All right, are we done pointing? In the last 9 months, since they made the most major changes, have you noticed anything, and have you had to adjust to it? Are subscribers that important anymore, for example? This is open to anyone.
Okay, I'll go first. Definitely we alluded to this August thing, and something changed for my channel, and I've been talking a lot with David Lovett, Usagi Electric, one of my friends, and he was affected, and we definitely have this huge viewer drop-off. And normally I don't care personally too much about it. I don't do sponsorships, and I think a lot of folks who do rely on views to help, get the money from their sponsors. Like their sponsors use that as a metric. So for me, it's not as big of a deal, but honestly, it's disheartening because it's my full-time job. I'm gonna make videos knowing that it's not for everyone, but we still want people to enjoy it. So when you see every video you put out as like 10 out of 10 performer, which is this metric you see in the dashboard, it really hurts. It's demotivating. And yeah, but I try not to let it bother me. I'm human, and it gets to you. And talking to David Lovett, who couldn't be here, we're just like, wow, what the hell are we doing wrong here? But YouTube's reluctance or not wanting to talk about any of what they're doing is really frustrating because we're employees of them, all of us, right? We get 1099 tax forms. So it's like, okay, we kind of work for you, and yet you don't even tell us like what you're changing here. So I think in the end, there's not much we can do as creators, unless you want to try to like chase this algorithm like Mr. Beast. I don't, honestly, because I make like niche repair videos. But you know, in the end, I'm going to move on. For myself, anyone who's a patron or a member or anyone, thank you, and thank everyone else as well. Makes it possible that I can do this and show my colleagues here.
I would clap mine holding the
They
phone.
can, for their living, it makes a huge difference to us. It takes the power away from the big company, puts it in the hands of the people. So thank you.
Okay. So, I've noticed, well, actually, declining views really for the last 2-3 years. It seems to have gotten worse. And I noticed when I'm browsing YouTube as a viewer, I'm often being presented with a lot of AI-generated videos that you look at and it says it has like 12 views on this video. And I'm like, why is this even being presented to me in a feed? Like, why are you presenting me something that is better quality? And I kind of feel like that's probably the same kind of thing as stealing views away from a lot of us. But yeah, I've also been looking into doing sponsorships as well. But the problem is every sponsor that contacts me is one of two things. Either one, they insist on doing 60-second integration, which I'm just not doing. I'm like, I'm not going to talk about your product for 60 seconds. I mean, I'll do it. Maybe talk about it for 10 seconds if I can fit it in somewhere, but almost everybody I talk to is like, no, we don't want that. And then the ones that do say they want that, they actually turn out to be scammers. Like they'll send me to some PDF that I got to download for an NDA, and it sends me off to an adobe.us.co. some other thing, and it's this malware or whatever that they're trying to get me on. So,
Pro tip, open your email over the next to your YouTuber. I'm serious.
Not if you fall for a phishing scam.
I made a strategic decision when I started the channel to not focus on sponsorships or ad revenue, but to focus exclusively on Patreon and Ko-fi. And a reason why I did that was that, I mean, one, I'll get enough ads. I could read you a sponsorship about something, and I don't fault other people for doing it, but it's like, I know, your attention is already being sapped because you're on YouTube. So it's like, I know what you're dealing with, and I deal with it too, and it's like, if I add more to that, I don't like it, I don't want to do it, so I don't. And I made the decision to focus on Patreon and Ko-fi and community building that way. And I've actually seen, while the ad revenue is decreasing and the view count is going down, my Patreon and Ko-fi is going up. And I think that to a certain extent, the community that watches and supports us is kind of recognizing a quality shift and deciding to put their money where their mouth is. And as somebody who depends on that, thank you, because oh my goodness, that's everything.
I think one of the reasons they added in with these changes to YouTube is because the AI has become so easy now and automatable that, as David was saying, there's videos that they can just churn out at scale. The last statistics I read was that 500 hours of YouTube are uploaded every minute.
Damn.
It's just going to get worse. So you're welcome. What do you guys feel about quality versus quantity? Do you feel it's more important to adhere to a regular upload schedule or to upload it, as Carmack would say, when it's finished and with great quality? Anyone care to take that?
I was just going to say, I think it's right in the middle. I think for me personally, giving myself a deadline really helps me create something out there.
Action retro.
No, and I'll chime in. As one of the regular releasers of videos, the deadline thing that Sean just mentioned makes a big difference for me. And to rely on it like we do as like our sole income, I know unfortunately the game is you have to produce content. And David and Clint have changed up the schedule so they can talk a little bit more too what it's like going from a regular release schedule to less release. But I would assume it takes it down on the bottom line, and it's their income, except for the patrons, of course, as I mentioned.
It seems like a gamble, but yeah, Clint, would you care to say that? Do you think that spending a little bit more time on quality is the better gamble?
Yeah, so when I actually started LGR back in 2008/9, it was actually a personal goal just to see if I could get something out every single week and stick to a schedule for a year. That turned into 2 years, that turned into 5 to 10 years. I stuck to the weekly schedule up until pretty much last year when I kind of was forced to just not make videos for a while due to extenuating circumstances. Things we don't want to talk about. Anyway, it was fine. I was like, oh, well, I get a little bit of a break while I get to put my life back together after a big hurricane thing. And I was really kind of shocked that it actually didn't make much of a difference in terms of the overall people returning and continuing to just wait for whatever was done to be done. And due to it mostly was just Patreon and everything else evening out, I'm actually getting right around the same numbers in terms of viewership and response overall as I was when I was doing something every week. So now even if something's coming out every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks, as long as I'm spending time, which has been the unforeseen side effect of that, spending time picking things more carefully as opposed to just cranking something out there just to meet that artificial deadline. As much as it was helping me in the past, I don't think I'm the same person that I was that needed that kind of help personally to make myself make a thing. And that was my problem, was just committing to any one subject for long enough to pay attention to it long enough and get it done. But after kind of being forced to do that, it really worked out. And I don't know why. Maybe it was just the picking of different quality subjects. Maybe it's just people are curious after the storm, and this will all kind of even out and go back down eventually. But going back to this whole algorithmic change thing, I don't really notice much of a difference there either, except for like this very last video that I did, which was kind of an unusual one. It was just me saying that I'm bald. So
It's big news in some circles.
yes, it's big news. I was like, hey, what's that? So I kind of expected that one to be poor in terms of performance. It's like, okay, who cares? But yeah, so I've yet to see what's going to change when I get back moved into my home and start doing things more regularly and hopefully. See, it feels like a new world in every respect almost. Getting back to this, resetting my head, resetting the channel, doing all of these things, trying to get back. And now the algorithm is different than when I was doing things more weekly. So, where are we at?
I'll jump in real quick because I think I might be the YouTuber on the camera who releases the least frequently. Maybe. I think I release one every about 3 months. I would love to get to the point where it could be my full-time thing and I'm looking forward to it. But just so the audience is aware, your last video, I made a floppy disk from scratch, cracked 500,000 views. So, for some people it works. I guess everyone has to find their own niche, but for you, it seems to work.
You can't make something on every week. That's just not something that, unless you have a whole crew working for you, like some of the YouTubers have, there's just no way to produce stuff like that. That's just reality.
I got the question asked to say that if you did this full time, how many videos do you think you could actually release? And you said, well, if I keep different projects like this, probably one every 2 months. Right? Because it's not one project, it's 50 different projects for one video. But I think that for anybody YouTubers out there, right, if you're worried about release frequency, focus on quality. Because I think that I've been lucky enough to show that you can gain a really good following and subscribers and viewership if you just focus on quality.
Even if it's just a few a year. I don't really know, I'm a big rant here, but I watch like some automotive channels and stuff, and And I've actually talked to some of these YouTubers in person, and they're like, well, that's how we make money, because we have, all these sponsors, we have to make some videos, whatever. And I could do that too if I wanted, and I probably would make more money, but ultimately those videos are forgettable. No one's gonna be watching those in 5 or 10 years or 20 years. And that's I'm trying to play this long game, and I want my content to be good enough that people are still gonna be watching it, years from now. And so that's another mindset that I guess
I turn down any idea that I have that pops in my head for a video. If I don't think people will watch it in 2 years, I shelve it. I try to only focus on, and that has more to do with topic picking and how you frame the video. So when I talk about Linux as an example, I try not to do distro reviews because it quickly becomes unhelpful, and then whatever algorithm we end up with isn't going to surface it. So I try to instead focus on something that's a little bit more practical, and it might include features about something that's new. But I try to worm it towards something that I think still works 2, 5, 10 years from now. I don't know if it's a quality versus quantity so much as a topic choice, but I think that gets into the quality versus quantity and what audiences I think tend to respond to more.
Now, I want to.
I was just going to say, when it comes to the quality versus quantity debate, it is also possible to pick neither. That's why being chosen neither. It's okay to do YouTube for fun, and that's what we.
It is okay to do YouTube for fun. I want to now turn this around on Jason Compton, seated directly to the next to me. Yes. So, Jason, you are one of the 3 co-hosts of This Week in Retro, which is a weekly retro computing news program. And the thing of quality versus quantity affects you in that you have to come out with a new episode every week. Has there been challenges doing that? What is it really like in retro computing?
Yeah.
How do you feel with that?
Well, so it's fun listening to all this. Go ahead, take your time. Do something good. Don't do things that are ephemeral. I'm like, don't take sponsorships. I'm like, we are brought to you this week by BCB Way. And by the way, this is an ephemeral news program. By the way, don't look to me to build an audience because I was the 5th man in. My job was just not to lose a lot of viewers. But yes, if you're leery about quantity, don't make your program something that makes the brand promise to deliver quantity. We do take hiatus weeks every now and then, which is normal in television as well. Yeah, there's generally a hiatus week if our editor can't do it. So if Duncan is on vacation, we're gonna shelve that episode. I think that's the most recent hiatus week because we have a 3-man rotation now. It's a little easier to take a break, like when we had 2 guests on. Taylor and Amy are on today's episode. If you haven't seen that,
We're bringing them down.
I don't think so. But yes, so. We are, the easiest way, especially for an American audience, to summarize what This Week in Retro is, it's Computer Chronicles, but for YouTube. And instead of Stuart Chaffee and his team of producers that are curating the news and deciding what to put into their program, we are curating via our subreddit community. So the subreddit community submits news items, things that have been reported on elsewhere, videos that have been made, articles from blogs or time extension, or things that have been tweeted about, all sorts of different sources. And through the Reddit community, things are uploaded, downloaded, commented on, and from that we curate, okay, what are the 3 feature stories we're going to cover that week? What are things that are maybe good news capsules, and what are things that either just don't fit our format, weren't particularly popular with the audience, aren't things that we can talk to. And to your point, if it's a little bit of a slow news week, or things that may get a lot of votes are, we've already covered this topic, nothing new has happened, or things like that. On today's episode, the 3rd feature story was something that I picked up from a different subreddit I submitted. I said, hey, there's this Christopher Drug guy. I keep seeing his name show up. He's now launched his blog, so let's talk about that. So some of it we can put our thumb on the scale if need be to this is what we're going to talk about. Some of it too, what I would say is a little bit of the art of This Week in Retro is sometimes a news item in itself might not be, wow, look at this amazing development in somebody's just strapped an Arduino to their brain and they've done this and this, or they've gone to the moon with it. Sometimes there's just a little bit of a seed, and our job is to be the storytellers around that. So, for example, early on in my run, somebody posted a picture of the Rally Vector, which was a British BMX bike that had a spot to put like a computer module in. And it wasn't news, nothing new had happened about it, but it turned into sort of waxing rhapsodic about what did it mean to have a computer strapped to your bike in the mid-'80s, what did it mean to be a British BMX kid. So that is a way also to turn what could be a slow news week into, it says this week in retro, you really better deliver a program today.
So you make it up. No, I'm kidding.
I mean, you story seeds.
It sounds like, yeah, you use it as an opportunity to tell a story or educate.
Yeah,
Something that hadn't been educated.
Exactly. Expand, share things among the three hosts. I mean, that is part of why people tune in. Each of the feature stories, there's one of the hosts is going to be the primary reporter on it, but it is expected that people are going to jump in. But this was my experience with magnetic tape storage. It's terrible, by the way. Don't listen to the Brits. It's terrible. Or whatever, and share that perspective.
Let me shift gears a little bit. We have a unique opportunity with both Clint and Matt on the panel to talk about things that get shattered into a million pieces and then possibly bringing them back together again. You may have seen Clint's video where he had a Halligan laptop arrive in a very unfortunate condition.
I saw that
It
on
just
Patreon.
kind of reinforces, I wonder where this hobby is going. We've known for many years, even decades, that major shipping distribution centers have legally up to a 4-foot drop for all parcels. This is for real. However, during COVID, it started to come to light that delivery truck drivers were standing on packages to reach the packages at the time. You can put a whole bunch of pool noodles in your package. You can use Instapack foam. You can do anything. But if a 200-pound guy is standing on your monitor, it's going to go crunch. Should we start taking manual possession of anything made out of plastic and glass at this point? And this is open to the whole panel. Like, is it becoming too risky to ship vintage computing equipment?
Yes. Don't do it.
Have you received some terrible things?
Yeah, well, as you know, I'm a little bit of a Mac business. So
What?
iMac G3, even that, looks fine. The internal bezel breaks, if you touch it. So much so that Macintosh this year actually came with some permission from Macintosh. But yeah, I don't think we should like any more plastic these days. It's huge.
I feel one of the worst things is that a lot of the people selling stuff buy like an estate sale or whatever, throw a sheet of bubble wrap in there, it's good enough, and then they sell it. I mean, a lot of it seems to be, I don't know in Clint's case with that computer, but I've gotten a lot of stuff from overseas from viewers, but they do a good job of packing it. I've been lucky to not have any over.
That's actually a really important variable. How many, and we're ready to Clint, but have you told the sellers how to ship them, and has that mattered?
Yeah, if it is something international, right around the same time as the Halligan, I actually ordered a huge 1980s computer from Japan, and it weighed even more than the Halligan. It was larger. I want to say it looked even more brittle, but it arrived in perfect shape. It was just pristine packaging. The Halligan was a few states over, and it showed up as a pile of broken computer chips, and that was all that was left. It was shattered in the most absurd way I've ever seen, and I can attest to it. It's just a disturbing, but increasingly common trend, and I really don't even know what the pattern is yet. We're trying to figure out a little bit of that.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, I think it doesn't matter what the plastic is made out of. It matters what it's made out of because the environment that it's made out of, right? I think it's the most widely agreed upon thing. And hopefully we're going to try to get to a little bit more information from that in the next video, when there's a little bit of a tease. But what I would say is that it's not necessarily a shipping issue. It's just a common issue period, because you could have something stored in your attic or your garage or things like that, and you pick it up and it could deteriorate, right? And so I think that, the question for me is, should you ship something that is valuable? Like, it's not a straight no, because sometimes, like, you want to take that chance because it's something that's so valuable and you kind of want to do that. And
And yet, my regular one that hasn't been retrowrited is still extremely strong plastic. And I don't know if there's a correlation there, but that one has very much gone through a bleaching process. And I don't know if that made it worse, but it certainly didn't run for too long.
I think one of my favorite comments on that video was somebody said that it looks like the power supply got in a cage match with the rest of the laptop. If you haven't seen it, you really should, because it is horrifying and sad, but hopefully we're going to be able to turn it around. And I think where kind of I love to come into this is my passion is preserving information, right? And information could be scanning labels, right? Like copying discs, but it can also be like reconstructing and 3D modeling a case so that maybe someone can put it at home, or maybe down the line when manufacturing costs come down and things like that, there things in Macintosh they do incredible work.
Is it okay if I say
but
this?
maybe that there's a way that they can start from along, right, that is free and open source and anybody can use it, right? And so I think preserving that kind of information is also a way to preserve existing machines, because eventually they are going to go. You're preserving.
3D scanning is getting a lot cheaper now and a lot more accurate, so it's definitely getting, and 3D printers are getting a lot better. So I can see a point where we can actually start printing stuff that doesn't really exist anymore or only exists in our definition. We actually know it's solid.
Drop the case and the plastic shattered. Camera was rolling, so it doesn't matter. The whole thing was busted, but subscribers can't be trusted because it's content.
Thank you. Good night, everyone. No, I definitely hear you. By saving the case, you're preserving that product's design language. And yeah, I totally agree. Is there a limit to what we can fix, what we can repair through 3D printing, through milling, CNC machines? I mean, how many pieces does it have to be?
I don't know, Matt seems to make discs, so I mean, that's like,
Do you think there's a limit, or do you think we can achieve anything with enough elbow grease? I don't think there's a limit to be able to preserve the information, right? To be able to preserve an exact model of something, but like, there's definitely going to be a limitation in capabilities of how you can manifest it through 3D printing or CNC machining and things like that too. But, right, like, it's getting better and better, right? And like, it's incredible the detail and the esteem of 3D printers at home these days, right? And how people can just load up a model and set it to print and it's good to go, rather than tinkering with it for hours and hours.
Well, then you get into the virtual computer of PCs.
Yes, I was gonna say.
Someone was gonna say that, I was just trying to get that far, I guess. At what point is it no longer, or is it always because the spirit?
I think the definition of the thing actually removes, and like I said this last year. I mean, the distinction between vintage and retro, where vintage is the thing that the museum should have. Retro is the thing that we enjoy, that themes it all together. Like my 5-year-old Super Nintendo MIDI cartridge is not vintage; it's retro. But 25 years from now, it will be vintage. And if 5 years is the vintage I'm going for, it's vintage now. Like, vintage is kind of a flexible term that I think, like, I appreciate it, and it shows what the thing is, but, like, ultimately, I keep going back to Amiga and having so much great software being written for the Amiga right now, like, oh my goodness. And most of the time, I'm seeing the stuff being played on a Mister. And that's great. That's fine. And for an entire generation of users, the definition of what Amiga is that thing and not the other thing. And who am I to say go wrong? You know, like ultimately at the end of the day, I just want people enjoying the thing. And if that's how we're enjoying it.
So there's also another thing to consider, and this actually is more obvious at the arcade than it is probably with computers, but I think the same applies. For those who are familiar with the philosophical idea of the ship of Theseus, well, we have some arcade machines in the arcade that I would call the arcade machine of Theseus, because it's been repaired and replaced so many times over 40 years, it's probably not even having any of the same perks that it had when it was first built, even though it still looks brand new. So it's something to think about.
I think that's a good point, because I think people collect things, people experience things for different reasons, right? So like if you have a computer that you grew up with, you're probably gonna want that computer. But if you want to experience things that other people experience in a way, there's different ways to do that, right?
Do you know how many times I built a brand new PC from parts, like every part's new? Once. The computer I built in like early 2000s. I've just been upgrading it ever since. To me, it's the same computer. It didn't stop being that same computer, and I find that to be kind of an interesting analog here. Like, we want to preserve, but ultimately the reason we want to preserve is for enjoyment. And like, if I'm still enjoying it, like to me it feels like the same computer, even if literally nothing of it is the same thing. Now that's different from preservation from the physical hardware perspective, and especially if your goal is preserving hardware. Yeah, like ruining it and throwing the case away or dremeling out the case to put a GoTech in. Yeah, you might be like making it not the thing you were intending on it, but ultimately it's your computer. You know, just enjoy it.
It's a sliding scale. Enjoy the hobby any way you want.
No gatekeeping here. I think we're about ready to start. I have one more thing I'd like to ask, but I think we're ready to start asking, taking questions from the audience. If anyone would like to ask one, you can start lining up here in the center behind our Q&A. I want to just kind of go off into left field a little bit and ask, we all produce content on YouTube. What kinds of content do you like to watch on YouTube?
Oh, I watch a man mow the grass.
I have watched that too.
I can just go into my happy place watching that man edge.
Is that power washing adjacent too?
Has that come up as well?
Yeah, there's that guy in Detroit who does the lawn care for free for people. I watched him. Yeah, pretty amazing.
Some lawn care. Cow hoof trimming? Rabbit hole. He knows. If you know, you know.
Car stuff. Place for garage.
Yeah, me too. I'm Sean. I watch a bunch of car stuff as well.
Yeah.
I love to watch anybody who is really passionate about what they do. It could be art restoration, it could be watchmaking, it could be whatever, but anybody who just details, they're passionate, they just love to do it, and it comes through in the video, I can watch it all day long.
I like the 2 or 3 hour video dive-ins on Mario 64 and decompiling it. I think that's really cool.
I love the speed running stuff as well.
Hard YouTube. No, yeah, oh, that's the thing. No, I love music YouTube in general, especially music gear YouTube, but there's a harp channel that I really like called Emily Hopkins.
We're both super fans.
Yeah, Sean and I are both super fans.
Are y'all musicians yourselves?
Oh yes, we're in a band.
Tell.
Yes, we're in a band called Stop It. So we're playing 10:30 this room. Jim, are you still here? We're taking over.
All right, well, let's.
Mario 64.
All right, well, let's start taking questions. Just feel free to ask, and when you ask your question, please, if it's directed at a single person, say so. If it's to the whole panel, say so.
It's not directed towards anybody, just towards the group. But we all enjoy things from 25 years from ago, the past, and talking about it and thinking about it. But in 25 years, is anybody going to be thinking about the stuff that make it today? Is there another group of people that's going to come to talk about the stuff that's coming today? I don't find anything interesting today.
I bet there has to be, right? Because, all those years ago, we were chucking this stuff out and selling it for $5 at a yard sale. I heard somebody sold an Apple Lisa for $5 once. So, I'm sure those people are going to have nostalgia at least.
Yeah, I think that's a human condition. It's like a rolling thing. So whatever you were born.
I think most of what exists today is more of software and less about what it runs on. So I think people will be nostalgic for things that came out today, whether they be movies, TV shows, or Angry Birds or whatever.
You may be right, but I don't know. I imagine in 25 years there's going to be some sort of retro phone conference, and this, people will be like, oh, that's the one, that was from 2025.
Yes, so I work.
Is that battery work?
I think the problem with what we're doing right now versus what we did back then is what we did back then, there were physical copies that you actually had and can still use today. Right now, so much of this is dependent on a cloud service or some app provider, and you're kind of at their good graces. And that's the part that I do worry about with like the hobby as it evolves, is we're gonna get to a point where, you know, we just plead that Nintendo makes Virtual Console Switch 3 edition in 30 years, so I can play Mario Kart World 4 on the, like, that, we're kind of dependent on them, whereas right now we're dependent on us. And I think that that thing changes the dynamic of this as we go.
I saw this video, Veronica. It was a person who was spending a lot of time archiving iOS games.
Yes, I saw
from
that.
old iPod,
Yep.
Shuffle, whatever the iOS iPods, because so many of those games have been delisted
Yep.
and they're lost. And you have to break this encryption and all this work just
Absolutely.
to get these off because they're not archived. Apple just deletes them. The developers don't care. And that's the nostalgia I think people grew up with, say, an iPod, and they're like, I want to play that game again. Michael or whatever.
I worry the kids who grow up like 30, 40, 50 years from now, when they're thinking back on the stuff that they played and that they enjoyed, they're not going to have the same experience we have where we can actually like fire up an emulator and do the thing.
Right.
Somebody's got to do that work now to get that stuff off of here, so that way in 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years, that stuff's available to people. And unfortunately, we don't make that easy, and we don't make that legal. And I think both of those things need to change.
And the thing is, what it'll be, it may be something that would surprise you. If 25 years ago at the 2000 SRAP Expo, one of the things that kind of flowed into making this show, if you told me 25 years ago at that show, in 25 years there's going to be people who are nostalgic for mainstream P2 and P3 machines, compact for stereo all-in-ones. I don't know if I would have said, I don't believe you, but I would have been highly skeptical. And yet those are areas of very serious nostalgia for a lot of people, so I agree. I think a lot of it's going to be steeped in what the mobile culture of today is, what wearables are today, things like that. And it may be more tricky to preserve and recreate than things of 25 years ago, but there will be a way, and I think that's where a lot of it will come from. Thank you.
So this is just in general, as a subscriber to a lot of you guys on stage, and I'm sure I will be subscribing to many more of you. But in general, I'd just like to say thank you because I feel like there's a lot of garbage and stuff on YouTube, and you guys all put in like a lot of intelligent content and just like a lot of really good educational content. And I know you guys are like entertainers first and foremost, but you're also historians and you're educators, and it's just really nice to see a lot of the technology and stuff that I grew up with as a kid, and how you guys can kind of. I think a lot of people are going to be able to, be able to connect with that, to a lot of the technology and stuff that I grew up with, and I'd just like to say thank you.
All right, this is Angel Mosquita, Angel Gray. So I know recently Perry Fractic bought the Commodore brand. And so for anyone, I want to know, how do you all feel, now that, Commodore has essentially been revived, and also similar to how, Commodore bought Amiga in the 80s, say Perry Fractic and his new Commodore were to, say, reach out to David, say, hey, we want to buy your Commander at 16, make an official new Commodore brand, and bring you and the team into it. Would you say yes, even if you offer you a lot of money, or no?
I guess I should probably be the first one to answer that. So actually, he did approach me about the Commander, not to buy it, but he wanted to offer us to use the Commodore logo. And we actually turned it down, not because we have any disagreement with anything that he's doing, but from our perspective, for example, I still have an entire garage, actually it's my mom's garage, full of like probably $20,000 to $30,000 worth of just Commander keyboards, for example, that are already labeled Commander X16. I'm like, I can't just change the logo on these things, right? So, and that's just one example, but I gave them a whole bunch. I mean, like, I was just like, it would be economically unfeasible for us to change the name at this point. So we declined, but I'm all, like I told him, I'm very wish him the best of luck, and I, as far as I'm concerned, whatever your opinion of Parafractic is or is not, I don't think he can make the situation any worse than it was before. Right. So I think it's got to be an improvement.
I'd like to kind of flip this around a little bit. Can I get a show of hands of people who, one, know about the this Commodore 64 Ultimate and like it and would like to purchase it? Show of hands. Okay, so that's a lot of hands, which is good. But please keep your hands up. Now, how many of you would buy it anyway if it didn't have the official Commodore logo? Pretty much the same.
I'm just excited that people are excited. That ultimately for me is kind of the point. And folks are getting really pumped about this. And like this, whether whatever you feel about Parafractic and what he's doing over there, I'm glad he did that, because it's definitely reviving some excitement and some razzmatazz. What do the kids say? Riz. Yes. It's definitely doing a thing, and I love that. That part is really exciting. Now, would I buy the thing because I need another FPGA thing? Maybe not. I don't know. It depends on what it looks like. But part of that is that I just have a stack of Commodore 64s and they work. So why would I replace it? But if I wasn't in that boat, yeah, that's looking really good, and it's hard to argue with it.
I think it's Commodore's 64.
Commodore's 64.
Yeah. And I've gone on record on This Week in Retro talking about the acquisition and as it's unfolded. So I would say that what I think is, if we're going to use the word good, what I think is good is that they have announced a product, they have put prices on it, they have taken orders, and now we can judge them by terrific. Are you shipping on time? Are you delivering what you promised? Did this all come together? I think that is good. I am rather less interested in, we did the show of hands over, do you want this machine? Do you care about the branding? I am personally a lot less interested in the future we were promised trademark stuff. I'm a lot less interested in the resting from the parallel universe that we all fell into. Those things do not interest me. They do not appeal to me. I do not actually think that those have made things better from the standpoint of are things better. I do actually think that having the parallel universe conversation is not a better thing. Insofar as that they hit the ground with a product that they're taking money for, and we can judge them on what they ship, I think that's good. Thank you.
This is a general question. Can you guys talk about the development of the demographics of viewers over the years? And then are there any sort of data accumulation data from, are there any ethics about gathering demographic data from viewers?
This is a test, is where we give you a demographic info, then we breach the ethics of the thing.
The red dots.
I don't love how much data YouTube collects. I think if you watch my channel, you kind of know what I'm about on this. I heartily encourage people to get around that in every way they can. And if that means I get less ad revenue, cool. Like I said, I prioritized Patreon and Ko-fi a long time ago for a reason. But I do wish YouTube offered, especially for premium subscribers, some kind of way to opt out of a lot of that. Because we're paying them. It's one thing for the ad revenue and stuff, but I never see an ad on YouTube because I paid the money to do the premium thing. And part of that is just because of speed and it makes it easier on my TV and whatever. I wish we could then say, I would like to uncheck the box and you don't care about my demographics anymore. I'm just a blank box to you. That I wish they would do. They don't do it, and I hold them to task for it.
I was gonna add that YouTube obviously is a Google company, and Google is an ad company, and they are driven by that. So I do agree with Veronica on that. I'm a premium subscriber as well, but I feel that Google will never give up the reins of
stories in the news about how the demographics are being guessed at by YouTube, and it's like, so I don't even know how valid is this really ultimately. Like, you're guessing, I'm guessing about you. Am I gonna make decisions based on like several layers worth of guesses? No, I'm just gonna do what I want.
Yeah, I can figure out is look to your left and look to your right.
Would you like to ask a question?
Okay, this is a general question, kind of like a future outlook for the environment. What do you think the Y2K38 problem will affect the next?
Will the okay, so just to repeat, the Y2038 problem is a problem where the 32 and signage or the Unix uses for a day will roll over, and it could cause mass destruction, just like Y2K did. I can quickly answer that. I'll let Veronica again too. Many distributions have already switched over to 64-bit, so there should be, by the time we get there, there should be problems.
Next to routers are getting raised?
Yeah, well, you're very, very old router. I think where I do worry about it a little bit, and only in a very minor way, is for our hobby and stuff that, you know, like I think about stuff that isn't ever going to get patched. And that could have some, you know, like we're not talking catastrophic issues, but like we're talking minor inconveniences that could impact us. As far as the stuff that's keeping the lights on and things, they fixed that a long time ago. And, you know, I think we learned some valuable lessons from Y2K and how we talk about it, where, especially in the culture, like there's a reason you haven't heard of this problem, and it's because I think that the nerds kind of figured out if we scare people, they're just going to think there was no issue. So we need to talk about it in a different way. It's, you know, that classic, if you do the preventative maintenance, you're not necessarily going to ever care that somebody's doing the preventative maintenance. So I think that, like, IT companies have gotten real creative about that and how they're fixing it.
Yeah, and I think for when it comes to the not keeping the lights on stuff, does it matter? Like, my retro computers don't have batteries in most of them because I don't care that the clock is set to 1980. Maybe I'm not doing work on them. I'm playing games.
And just ask you a question for this. The Olivetti M24 was a decent phone made in 1984, and it only had a 3-bit value for its real-time clock date. So when it became January 1992, it was 1984 all over again. And back then, hobbyists wrote their own alternate clock drivers and other programs to fix it. So I think the hobbyists will find a way out of that. Thanks for the question. Thank you for doing that. It's a wonderful story.
Maybe a bit of an odd question. You guys are all very generous with your time interacting with your viewers and your community, whether it be on YouTube, social media, or at events like this, where we get a chance to ask you questions. Have you ever wanted to ask your viewers a particular question? And have you ever not done it because you were afraid to answer?
I make a habit of doing like surveys. So like I use between YouTube, you know, YouTube has a polling question. One of the problems that I have with this is it only shows up on mobile. So you're actually self-selecting your user based on that. And I don't love that, but I ask a lot of questions that are really specific to future content, if that makes sense. Generally, the question that I'm not really afraid to ask questions. I'm a little afraid to ask what you think, if that makes sense. Like, it's oh, give me your honest opinion. You know, sometimes, especially in video elements, I don't want the honest opinion. You know, like, lot of comments, and sometimes the honest opinion's gonna come out.
I do surveys and polls, not a ton, and I wouldn't say that like, I'm definitely, like, if it's something that I'm invested in, like, I get over myself to ask the question, but I am concerned about the response, right? So, for example, I think one of the most, one of the most controversial things I think YouTubers can do is put music in their videos, and because everybody has an opinion, and it's always different opinions about the style, about the voice, about all that kind of stuff.
Yes, can confirm.
It is, and like I love to put music in my videos. And I love very this specific style that I like to put in my videos. And so I asked the question. Now, luckily, the majority of the responses were, "I don't care," or like, "You just do what you want to do," which is, it's so cool to hear a response like that from the community that I'm doing the content for, right? I've always said that if I wasn't doing YouTube, I would still be doing these projects. And the only reason I do YouTube is for you guys, right? It's for the community. And so it was really good to hear that. But no, I mean, I was worried that the responses would be like, it's all terrible.
I mean, the reality is we can't please everyone. So
Totally.
you put a poll out there, what are you gonna do? You just gotta keep doing what you're gonna do.
Right.
I just have a quick question for like just generally everyone. What is the most prized possession of like retro tech?
I'll go first. It's the second most valuable thing I own after my house. It's a real Commodore 65. I keep it in a bank because it's a dumb thing to keep in my house.
Okay, do you remember when you don't remember? Okay, back in the day, once upon a time, Commodore was running a sale where if you brought in an old computer, you would get $50 off of Commodore 64. Now, all of those old computers that people brought in wound up at Commodore, and the engineers at Commodore, they were like in a bin, and they could, go through the bin. Well, Bill Hurd grabbed out of that bin a Kim 1. Someone traded in a Kim 1 to get a Commodore 64. And he was kind enough to give that to us like a couple of years ago. So that was if you want to see it, it's on speaking of
This weekend retro. YouTube.com. So that's this weekend retro out there.
I have like a goofy one. It's retro because it's vintage because it's from when I was a kid. Have you ever heard of the Etch-a-Sketch animator?
Yep.
Anybody remember that one? Like, okay, it's a little handheld drawing, like pixel drawing thing, and you just kind of you indicate like this pixel's gonna be black, this pixel's gonna be white, this pixel's gonna be black, this pixel's gonna be white, and then you can go to the next frame. This pixel's gonna be black, this pixel's gonna be white, this pixel. I swear to you, that is where Veronica Explains comes from, because I figured out I can make this move. And when I figured out I can make this move, it was real quick to, I can make computers move by learning some code, and then it really quickly turned into, I can make video, I can make audio, it launched me in media, and it was just some silly gift that my parents got me, and I still have it. I still have the original one. It's sitting on my desk behind me when I'm working, and every now and again I bust it out and I just draw something on it, just for fun.
I'll go have two. And the first is this Micron PC opinion, whatever, and it was the first retro video I ever made on my channel. So it kind of holds a special place in my heart. It's a very commodity computer, but it was an old lady, and she had it since it was brand new, it was all in box, never really used. And my friend called me up and he's like, hey, there's this computer on Craigslist, you should go pick it up. So I went and got it, and those videos are still on the channel. They're super cringy because I didn't know what I was doing. I was literally just like, I'm gonna record this. But it holds a special place because it kind of was the beginning, but not really popular. But then my field found Commodore 64, which I have on my table, was so pivotal to my channel. Like I don't know, the video has like 700-something thousand views at this point, but it really brought in a huge amount of subscribers that made it, kind of put me on the map. And I have it here, and it's been 6 years, and it still works after being rescued. And it's another Commodore 64. I have a lot of something about that machine. I could give away the other ones and whatever. But this one I love because because it's so monumental for my career, which I do full-time now. Honestly, if I hadn't found that computer, like, you know, those are the little things that happen in your life that can make pivotal changes, and that one I think is my little pivotal.
For me, it's my Apple Lisa for two reasons. One, because I never thought I'd actually have one. Just be able to use it, like, the software is so cool to use. So I never thought I'd be able to do that. But two, I got it actually because of VCFMidwest and some friends that I've made here that really gave without having to do stuff. It really helped with working. You being able to get it and trade for it. I didn't actually buy it.
So I have a number of things that I would put very high on the list. I cover Max, cover 116, and Kim 1. But honestly, the thing that I think is probably the coolest thing to show a lot of people in the normal whatnot is my Apple One. And for those that don't know, it's a replica that I built, and it looks exactly like an Apple One. In fact, for those that don't know, it was in one of Clint's videos where he was scrounging through an old warehouse full of a bunch of old boards, and we secretly stuck it in there, and he was just like, yeah, here's an old board, there's another old piece of junk, or whatever. And we skimmed through the comments, tried to find anything, he goes, oh my gosh, there's an app. And there were like, how many? Dozens of people that were telling him, go back, you gotta go get that apple.
It almost caught me, but I was like, no, I knew there was some trickery happening there.
That was you, isn't it?
One thing that definitely comes to mind is I'm also a computer researcher for Ken Williams Super Junior, which was Ken Williams, the founder of Sierra Online.
That put the Apple One.
Computers that actually came from Sierra Online. They extended a computer reset for repair. They had a bunch of debug files and programs from Sierra, and when you start up, it says, welcome to Ken Williams Super Junior, and I put the code name Iceman files and things like that. Repair list from Sierra and hard disk fixed, and they never did. It just sat there for decades until they found it. So, had to bring it home and get that thing archived.
Playing an Apple One, that's crazy.
Hey, Nikki, of course. Matthew's not a possession, though. No, he's an entity.
Sad eyes, I think.
I'm kind of curious about like this, the whole like cottage industry of content creation. Like how, just for whoever is interested in answering, like how difficult, how much preparation did it take for you to get to the point where you spun up your channel, like from scripting to editing, putting it out. Like, did you do a bunch of practice videos and then discard them and say until you got the ones that you just good enough to release?
No.
That's not what they had.
You just start.
Press record.
And you go and you put it out. Now, we are the beasts of production value.
Oh, I don't know. I was right there with you. But...
We'll take a poll. Yeah.
Oh, you load that.
Well, it might be a good idea to do a poll, actually.
We Googled best camera for YouTube and purchased it and still use it. You can tell by watching our videos. But so the spectrum of the amount of effort you can put in. I mean, I know that you're doing hours of stress and edit, but you can also just grab a camera and put something up there and do it. So you can any of what you want. And I think I've heard from millions of places over. It's like just get started. Don't put it all.
Yeah.
Do it and get out there. And then you have so much fun.
Just out of curiosity, who here on the panel did a year or more prep before making their first video?
Veronica did.
Anybody? I did 5 years of prep. Like, really like learning videography, like trying to get better at using the camera, trying to get the equipment, trying to test the equipment. But like I was working a full-time job. And so like this was really hobby level stuff. Who here did 6 months of prep?
And you're a musician.
I am a musician. Yeah, okay, I was gonna say, you didn't seem like work.
I took acting lessons.
Well, I do now for fun, for personal development.
Yeah.
To the point I did the exact opposite of what you did. I
still more effective.
I used my phone for the first video, and I didn't even talk at all. There's just a little bit of music behind it, and just me kind of focused. I barely edited it, and I still love that video. Like I still go back and love. And like I'm somebody who like part of like the cinematography is very interesting to me, and so I've chosen to also kind of go down that route. But like I know like all I do is I look at my video that I've done in the past, right? And I'm like, you know what? There's two things that I'm gonna change or even make different for my next one, and that's it. Just pick a few different things. Don't be hard on yourself, right? But just start choosing. You know, use your phone. Not anymore.
The other way around, I started with a fancy camcorder, and now I use my phone because it's better quality.
Right. And I think because I'm here, because I'm on This Week in Retro, which is it's a collaborative show that was in no way my idea. You know, I'm the fifth man in as a host. The original hosts aren't at the show anymore. The original producer is still there. So it's a little bit different in that I was joining a format that already existed. So you could say, hey, sorry. I would say an established, we'll call it collective. But I guess by the point I'm trying to make here is, although yes, I mean this is the solo proprietor or pair or whatever, like obviously it is a predominant model, but it is not necessarily the only one. And I don't think I personally would have done my own channel because I would have done it by now. I think. And my on-ramp was actually doing a podcast. I also do the Retro Adventures podcast, which was also not my idea. But that's also the story of Amiga Report, which was, as I said in there on the announcements, if you're listening, I was big in the 90s. Amiga Report was the online magazine that I, for lack of a better term, made famous, but I was the third person to be its editor-in-chief. Sometimes it's okay to work your way into something that already exists. In fact, I would argue that for most of media ever, that's how it is. You don't have to invent the evening news to be a newscaster. You just find a station that needs you. And for some people, that's the honor rather than I'm going to establish my own brand and have a life partner, back it, or whatever that story is. It's okay if that's not your story. You can still also be part of the broader, 21st century media sharing infrastructure.
Maybe the lesson here is maybe start with a group of friends instead of just by yourself.
Yeah, with podcasts, they usually say, record a bunch of stuff, and you're probably going to throw it away before you actually release something, but it's different with you than
Stanley? I said, yeah.
Thank you for the question.
So I have two quick and burning questions. First, for Clint, and feel free to call for help. In both your SimCity 2000 retrospective and your SimCity 3000 retrospective, you say that the series of this title of the video is the best one. Which SimCity is the SimCity rule? Yeah. And don't worry, the hardest question actually goes to Adrian. How does Deoxit work?
Clint goes first.
SimCity 2000 is the personal favorite, just because that was the one I obsessed over and had a good connection story with the parents and grandparents who were fascinated me on that. 3000 was the one that I would say is just top tier. Because the perfect mix of classic and newer, it was for looking some other direction than some other people. So like 2000 was a little more simpler. 3000 had just enough complexity, artwork, and music and everything else just hits perfectly for me. So.
And as for Deoxit, one word, science. That's what makes it work. Yes. Science makes the world go around at this point, and it's so important to learn science and participate in science, especially for young people. So whoever chemical engineers figured out this stuff, it's quite magical, but it's not magic, it's science.
I'll take it.
A perennial topic of these panels is anxiety about YouTube, and is it going to continue to be viable and things like that? So my question is this pie in the sky, do you think that a vintage tech, vintage computer, over-the-top service, all like Dropout or Nebula, or vintage tech, is that going to be viable, or is there not enough market?
I mean, it's funny, I'll go with this whole view apocalypse crap that Jay talked about earlier. I've thought about Nebula and it's like feels like moving an iceberg in a way. So I've thought about some of those other platforms, but you worry like, well, my patrons are over here, and what about them? I'm gonna have to make them switch and stuff like that, and I don't know how to make that happen. So
Personally, I'll just go where the audience is.
yeah, people are asking, hey, why don't you be on Tabletop? And okay, I'll get there.
The audience there, if they had a great comment section, if they had a good way to interact and get that kind of feedback that I like, but between Patreon and YouTube, I'm still okay with that despite all of these numerous growing issues.
You know, like I don't just do vintage tech, but I also do a little bit of Linux stuff. And what I found was putting the Linux stuff and vintage tech stuff too on what's called PeerTube, which is, so if you don't know, like Mastodon is to Twitter, like PeerTube is to YouTube, in that you can host it yourself and you can control like what videos go on it, and it's kind of your own thing, but it's definitely, discoverability is not quite there, it's federated, you gotta know certain system administrative stuff, which I don't necessarily recommend for everybody, but it has actually been a really big boom in the channel in that I am reaching, especially patrons and monthly sustainers that don't want to use YouTube. And so that's actually helped me funnel, resources for myself and this thing. And like when I think about something like Floatplane, you mentioned as an example, I think if there's users there, if there's people there, I think it makes sense to maybe jump into that. Something that's vintage specific would really depend on you. It doesn't depend on us. It has to do with consumer behavior more so than it ever has to do with what we want to do. We can't tell you where to be. That's ultimately what you all are going to do. And like I think for each of us, that's an individual choice. You and us.
Chicken and egg.
It's really hard to be free though, and YouTube is free. So.
Question for the group. I was wondering if there's any particular piece of peer group that you regret getting rid of. Toshiba T2086. My first real computer I bought it when I was in middle school. Flea market, and I sold it also as a teenager. And I've been looking for it ever since. And apparently the 286 version is like impossible to find. 386 version is everywhere. I don't know.
Model are you looking at for? 2,000. I think I have 3,000.
Does anybody remember the all black, like the Darth Vader Activa with the thing in the, like you had the monitor and then the thing in the middle, and it flipped up and there was the CD drive and the floppy drive, and that's where the power button was, and an umbilical cord that led to the tower. So it looked like, it kind of looked like an all-in-one, but it wasn't. There was a tower somewhere else. I had that as a kid. It was my computer that like the family had. It was the Windows 95 version. It was really cool. And we let my little brother try to build a sleeper build out of it. And he destroyed it and got chucked in the garbage. And it's like, I wish more than anything it had some sense to say, now you build a sleeper build out of a beige box. So like that one, if I ever see an Activa that's all in one, it's got all the parts to it, like I might start that out. Sorry, family. You all can take a plane home.
I would never bring anything away.
All your original stuff?
Oh. I've got Amy's 2600 and she was when we were kids. I've got my Odyssey 2. I've got my 2100. I'm like a Katamari ball.
I'm starting to get some stuff in there, so I might have the rights in the future.
For me, it wasn't a equipment, it was all of the software projects that I did when I was a kid. Like, I created like a level for manufacturing, a couple of key gems, like, things like that you just never get them back. And so it's not about the equipment, those are the things for best.
You can buy replacements for the equipment.
Yeah.
If it works, it's gonna.
Yep.
I have 3 examples that we were talking about today. It's just business. So, probably around 92, I threw a Commodore PET in a dumpster because I couldn't find anybody to take it. Nobody wanted it because it was that worthless at the time. I also had an Apple Lisa that I tried and tried and tried to work. So I'm one of every model of laptop from like 19, I don't know when they started making laptops, but up until, like 98. And I was like, when I said, what am I ever going to do with these? Because they were already obsolete in 2005. I had to put it on the curb for the trash bin pickup. Now I wish I had all of those back. I could do a whole documentary on all the different laptops that we.
Hey, Clint, this is for you. I want to know where things come from. In your Christmas videos, where did the phone come from? Go back on my videos, all the way back to the beginning, and see some. There were a bunch of experimental tests of me just messing with editing software, like in 2006, 2007. And one of the very first ones, you've got to try to clone yourself, right? And then one of the very first things that I did, I think it's still up, a video called Clint Hates Himself. It's not that serious, but there was a couple of Clint clones that was sort of going on like this Rome's logic or whatever, and a couple of airsoft guns, and they were just sort of threatening each other. And I'm like, yeah, I can do this. I can have my interactions with myself. And I just kind of kept that going. I don't know. It was just one year during Christmas. I'm like, what if I have, my sort of normal at the time, the grumpy, non-Christmassy self, and the childhood self that still wants to enjoy Christmas and go back and play Christmas livings and all these happy games. So it was always that. The clone was a really happy Christmas one, and it was me playing the grumpy one. So that's what that was.
That's your clone was? Halloween exists?
Yeah, no, it got very existential. They just kept having conversations, and at that point, a third clone came in and just said, no, we're going to get some games instead. So I got a little out of hand.
One thing that I would definitely echo
Thank you.
is alternative distribution. Absolutely. I really hate getting on YouTube, and I like to watch things on my TV. YouTube. So if you guys do like Big Swarm or something like that, my question.
I was going to say real quick, I know it's been kind of brought up here too, it's another thing that I'm highly interested in that. So I've had a number of people over the past 6 to 8 months in particular with YouTube continually doing things in terms of getting in the restricted mode and all this other stuff. They're like, I'm just tired of this service. Is there somewhere else you can post stuff? And I've just told people straight up, rip my stuff, put it elsewhere. I don't care. That's fine. People putting it on archive.org, people putting it on Billy and Chinese services, like, you put it everywhere. Chop it up. As long as it's attributed to me, you're not taking stuff away from it, and it's still got, like it's clearly an LGR video, that's fine. And I guess I'm just sort of waiting to see which one ends up getting the most attention and like people actually use. And then, I'll start over. It is myself.
One reason I talk about PeerTube is because it does do the torrent thing. And so, it gives you a download button. It is super slick, it's easy. Like for me, that's what I want to do. So I'm a little bit of a data hoarder. So if you want to do that, please do it. And I love that PeerTube makes that just dirt easy. It's way cool if you want to make it easy for people.
But before you ask the question, which I know which what you came for, but you've actually given me my answer to the what's a question you are maybe afraid to ask. And that's if we ask, hey, does anybody want us to put our videos on FlugelTube? Somebody's going to say, I love FlugelTube. That's so great that you guys are going to be on FlugelTube. And then that is another commitment to, oh, you're going to have to post on FlugelTube. So, okay, I guess you better allocate those extra minutes in your day. So it can be a tricky question to ask because the answer will inevitably, the internet will generate the answer yes. And then it's like, oh, all right. Does that mean we're going to have to do it? Or tell that guy, no, we're not doing it. Why did you ask? We were just checking. So, it can be, with all respect to those who are like, rip it, put it up. Some of us are like, well, we're going to control our distribution, thank you. But, it would open up, extra effort every time you open up on the chat. I'm sorry.
I noticed like Vimeo is going away or a blog or something, right? Yeah. And I don't know what that means for it. I used to be on Odyssey as well, and that's gone. And it's a mess. So it's like I'm worried about having to spend extra brain cycles to support extra services that aren't for sure going to be around.
It's one of the things I like about PeerTube. I promise I'm not being sponsored by PeerTube. But you can just say, I want my YouTube to be mirrored here, and it makes it pretty easy. So like I kind of liked that. I do manually upload it. That's because I use the API because I'm programming things and I'm a nerd. So here we are.
And now for your actual question.
So my question is, and this is for everyone, limit time with your hair.
How much time did you have?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, we have 5 minutes left, I'm not sure. I'll
It's
throw it out
2:55.
when I had my SC30 that I put 12 volts into the data lines.
Oh.
After recapping it, so that destroyed almost everything on it.
That's cruel and unusual punishment.
I was luckily had a battery long 2CX motherboard that gave up all of his chips to repair that SC30.
I broke my kid's Game Boy Color for her birthday. So I had to go buy a new Game Boy Color on her birthday.
What happened?
Oh, I blew a fuse. I couldn't see anymore because I'm losing my. I need to put readers on when I do work because I'm at that age now. And I accidentally blew a fuse because I bridged something that I should have been paying more attention to. Sorry.
Yeah, and it's weird that kind of like the 90s for Destiny artists. What do you YouTubers in the vintage and retro space, you guys testifying that Michelle, you were you would like to see on the stage?
Well, I got one that I've been talking about all weekend. Who I mean, she lives on the other side of the planet, but Sakaya's Digital Attic.
Oh my god, that was the one I was gonna say.
Yes, she's amazing. Like I think she's from Italy, and she seems just absolutely wonderful. And the way she cuts her videos, it's concise. It's really slick. I'm a huge fan. She's not gonna get here probably, but she's awesome.
Did you know she does her videos in English and Italian?
Is that how? Okay, I was having this whole conversation about this. Yes, that's amazing.
Everyone was saying young people.
Yes, 100%.
Speaking of young people, Ron and Ron's computer videos is really awesome. He's on the table next to me. He's like, but Ron's really awesome, and he does interviews with people that are either developers in the past or have been part of either Commodore or Apple, and he has a lot of great content. He's one of the YouTubers.
Yes, very much you.
I wouldn't necessarily say up and coming, but as far as you ask who would I like to see up here, I'd like to see Alan from Technology Connections up here. I've asked him several times, so if you live right here, please come.
There's a small channel I watch called IIITIY, and the guy is a professional. He like color grades professionally in cinema, and his videos are beautiful. And if you're looking for a repair, yes, it's a Blackbird love repair type of thing, but you're into those kind of videos, like he does amazing.
Get a cinematographer to make a YouTube video.
Thank you.
Quick shout out to Posey.
Oh yeah.
So this is for the group. Just wondering, like, what for you? I'm sure if I ask this to 20 different people, you're gonna get 20 different answers. But for you guys, like, what makes you so passionate about older technology? What keeps you guys going?
Nostalgia.
The aforementioned, we had ownership over things that we don't have on modern technology is 100% why I come back to this. Oh my goodness, to show people a world that we used to have and to have them be inspired to create the world that's going to come tomorrow. If we do that with one kid each day, that's the job.
Yeah, it's the approachability of the whole technology, and they designed it, especially starting in the 80s, that they were okay with you as a user going in there and fiddling around.
Welcome to the world of friendly computing.
Yeah, and even the early Apple computers were designed that way, and now look where we are. And someone asked a question about the future of this hobby. 30 years from now, and the nostalgia is going to slide, right? So that people, when they get older, will today. But what is going to be left of the hobby at that point? I don't know. But yeah, I love the approachability and the fact that a non-educated person like me who has no training can fix stuff. I just don't think
I mean, it's not that it's not going to be possible, but it's going to be harder in the future.
It is, and I would say that for me, I do it to learn myself, and I love to learn, like, it's kind of making a channel calling that, but it's, I like multidisciplinary stuff, right? So, but for older technology, it's such a great way to be able to learn the hardware and the software, right? And get people excited, get young kids excited about the fact that you don't just have to choose like one path and forget about everything else, right? Like even if you're doing like a CS degree, like just start looking about other things, about hardware kinds of things, about material science kinds of things. Like the more that you know, the more you get interested in. So I think it's just such a good way to just get kids excited about learning more. I mean that's why I do that.
I have a viewer, I just want to add, like, kind of along those lines, someone came up to me today and was just talking to me about their kids are getting into this old technology, and the funny thing is like, people around today have to deal with social media, and everything is connected, and the world we were in the old days, maybe you were on BBS sharing a message that was like slow, days, but most people were isolated, but not that that was bad, but now that they're taking phones away from kids in school, is maybe reminding kids, hey, you can socialize face to face. And you get together and play games together, and you can do all this stuff. And I think these old computers just embody a lot of that. And
Online used to be a place you went and left.
yes,
We stopped leaving, and I think we lost something when we quit leaving, and we need to start leaving, if that makes sense.
you can use a Commodore 64 and you get left.
Yes.
It's you and the machine at basic.
And we have time for one more question. I just wanted to say, you guys said if you have to worry about where the viewers are going. If you went to PeerTube, any of you, I would follow you there. I don't want to be on YouTube either. I do that technology connections thing where my homepage from YouTube is my subscription feed and not my recommendations.
Yes, that's the thing to do.
That is the correct thing to do, and most people who watch YouTube don't understand that. They expect all of their favorite creators and subscribers, feeds they subscribe to be on the homepage, but the homepage can only hold so much. So you definitely, that's a fantastic, I just want to
And
point
it's
that out. That is a
chronological. Like,
fantastic
if someone
thing
goes
to
in
do.
the video, it's like, I see, okay.
It's
That's
all-
why I don't have to worry about checking every week.
It solved 90% of the problems on YouTube to just use the subscriptions tab instead of doing all, 90% of the problems done for us.
YouTube Premium, the subscription tab. Life is great.
Okay, so here's the thing. I'm a software guy, and for a long time, I didn't really collect vintage hardware because I have a lot of space in a small apartment. But I love emulators. That's actually how I kind of got into all of this. But as I observe new and obscure pieces of hardware, I noticed the emulators are actually not up to par. And then I see things like the iPod clip wheel preservation where people are trying to start emulating devices that are requiring emulating and replayer. What is something that doesn't really have a good emulator that you would like to see emulated so that people can experience that software? It doesn't have to be rare, but I don't know.
Are you gonna make it?
Maybe, I don't know. I'm also hunting for ideas.
There was a lot of really good work recently at the Nintendo 64 emulation scene on the Mister, and they got really close, but they were really kind of limited by the Mister's hardware limitations at getting to really high levels. And I would love to see that advance. And Nintendo 64 has always been this really hard target to do. And that one, it's vintage. It is a vintage now, believe it or not. And I think that was really cool to see.
I'll point out, and Jim can attest, we only just got cycle accurate 8088 IBM PC emulation just recently. So there's a lot of stuff out there that's missing cycle accurate stuff that most things will work, but when you really push the limits, like the demos that Jim's worked on, it breaks everything. And so you kind of can look out there to see what's missing, and all the 286 and 386 stuff is not cycle accurate, right? Still, so
That's correct. Yeah, we actually had a talk earlier where someone was working on cycle accurate 386, but there's not a lot of it. Certainly, I would join some emulator communities and ask, what's too hard to emulate, and take that as a challenge.
I was also thinking along the lines of root peripherals, where it's like emulators are always something with peripherals. Thank you.
As they used to say in the days of radio, the hands on the clock can all say that unfortunately we have to bring another panel to a close. And before we do, two quick announcements to make. The Vintage Computer Festival Midwest is a nonprofit, and we survive based on your support. So if you could be back for an hour for the auction run by our very funny and flamboyant auctioneer Jason Timmons, your support can help make the next year's show possible. Also visit the garage sale table, buy some shirts, maybe a mug. You will hawk anything. And the second announcement is that I'm very glad you were all here today to experience this record-breaking YouTubers panel, because after 5 years, this was the last annual YouTubers panel. After 5 years of organizing and moderating the panel, I am stepping down to direct my efforts elsewhere in the hobby and in the show. And I wanted to take a second to recognize the people who've been on the panel the longest and really been great just helping put the panel together. Excuse me if I'm at a loss for words. People have been on it for 3 years, like Sean, and you remind me he's been on the panel for 3 years. I think this is your 30th year, exactly, and then people have been on it for 4 years. Crazy Ken Computer Claims, not currently on stage, but he was an inaugural member as well. And, Adrian consecutively and Clint non-consecutively, and I would like to give a very special Best Sport Award to David Murray, who's been on the panel all 5 years. Meaning from the bottom of my heart, and I'm really glad you guys give so much of your time, so thank you very much.
Round of applause for Jim Leonard.
Jim Leonard.
And with that, I have an awful lot of running around to do, so please come back here in 1 hour. Thank you very much.
And that is it. So yeah, that's it. That's the end of the talk. Yeah, there we go. Thank you. So yeah. Thank you, Jim. Thank you, guys. Yeah, everyone's leaving. It's going back to the main halls now. So yeah. So that was the YouTube talk.